and actually start what was then the National Legal Aid and Awareness Program, which is the current National Legal Aid Service Board. And my role was primarily to work with different actors, mainly civil society actors who were engaged in legal aid. And out of that, I was able to lead the process of developing the legislative framework as well as the policy framework for legal aid in Kenya, and which is in place to date. The opportunity to serve in the judiciary came in 2014. That was my last major engagement. I served in the judiciary as a chief registrar for 10 years, starting 2014 to 2024 when my term ended. I served for 2 terms under 3 chief justices, and that role being as challenging as it was, because the role of the chief registrar of the judiciary has very many angles to it. The chief registrar is also the secretary to the Judicial Service Commission. That means then that you're also serving as a secretary to a board, so to speak. So you have 2 jobs in one, full-time secretary JAC and chief registrar of the judiciary. It's an administrative role, a managerial role, working with members of the Judicial Service Commission who are very accomplished members in their own right. We had the Attorney General, we had judges, we had a magistrate, we had the Law Society represented there, and just being able to manage the dynamics of the Judicial Service Commission alongside the judiciary, which has very diverse interests. We have judges, magistrates, we have staff. And again, in that role, I also had to serve as secretary to the National Council on the Administration of Justice. And that's a role that requires a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of coordination skills, a lot of communication between the state and non-state justice sector actors. That exposed me to so much in terms of governance, in terms of organization, in terms of collaboration, coordination. And these are all skills that are required for the position of chair of the IEBC. Having served as secretary of the Judicial Service Commission and having worked under 3 very competent chairs, I had an opportunity to learn a lot from them in terms of just managing all the dynamics that came my way. And I believe I did so successfully. And so I feel very prepared for the challenge of chair, Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission chair.
Thank you very much. I will ask Ms. Linda Kiomi to also do some questions for you.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Amadi. The IEBC Act envisages a commission that comprises persons with mixed assets and skills as well as different disciplines in their professional background. What is it that you are bringing into the IEBC as a chairperson that is different from what has been in the previous chairpersons?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. I bring several skills. The position of chair of IEBC is a leadership position. It is also a judicious position, and it's a position that requires a lot of interrelations across the board: government, non-governmental organizations, international bodies, development partners, and all that. So I bring number one, I consider myself to be a unifier, just in my nature and character. Having had a lot of experience in high pressure environments, just being able to bring in the whole aspect of composure, competence, and genteel comportment, because it's a high pressure position at times, the times when it gets really, really difficult, and just being able to maintain that composure and to work with competence and taking into account what everybody's interests are, because eventually it is the chair to take a position. In the role of the chair involves, as a leader, it is the chair that plays the key role in setting the agenda. So in so doing, it means that then you have to be able to rally members around the vision that you have, so that the agenda is supported, so that people have a common view, a shared understanding of what the agenda is about. It's not just about bringing issues for discussion, but ensuring that there is that shared responsibility and shared vision. It is also the chair's role to make sure that you maintain good working relationship with each and every member of the commission, so that even outside of the commission meetings, there's a way that a chair should be able to reach out to the members and forge a relationship that will help in terms of moving the objectives of the commission forward. The chair also has to have a very close but independent working relationship with a secretary to the commission, because the secretary is the person that's in charge of the day-to-day running of the commission. And having been in the position of a secretary and having that understanding in running a big and busy institution, it's very clear to me where the role of the chair ends and where that of the secretary begins. So that is an advantage I'll be able to bring on board, so that we don't have an issue of overreach on the side of from the commission to the secretariat. It's also important for the chair to be able to, in a sense, protect the secretariat or the secretary and CEO from interference by members, because that does happen. And so if the secretary is exposed and doesn't have the protection of the chair, it then begins to compromise services, and it begins to affect work. It's also the responsibility of the chair to make sure that there is compliance with all the principles of governance. We have the Mwongozo governance framework that guides all public institutions, and having worked with that document, it gives an advantage to be able to manage the commission well. A chair has to have high emotional intelligence, which is a skill that I have, so that you know what to do at the right time. You know how to deal with emotions of other people. You understand when to push something, when to step back. And you also know how not to overspeak under pressure, not to operate in panic. So those are skills that I would want to bring to the commission.
Maybe you could also expound or give information to this panel on whether or not you have any special skills in terms of information, communication and technology, because the future of IEBC truly is electronic.
Yes.
Do you have any such skills?
Yes, indeed. I actually oversaw a very robust digital transformation in the Kenyan judiciary. We moved from analog to a digital institution. And one thing that gratifies me the most is that all of it was done using internal capacity. We had previously procured different systems that never worked. But when we began to now enhance the capacity of our ICT directorate and to just compare what other jurisdictions had we allowed the team to run with it, because all they were able to do was come and do a presentation on what they were capable of doing. And as the chief administrator of the judiciary, it was my responsibility to facilitate them to be able to do that. So we ended up, initially it was under a lot of pressure during COVID. We were able to come up with a virtual courts. We were able to come up with virtual, e-filing and other platforms without spending any extra money. And that is good for sustainability, because then the judiciary currently doesn't pay for any licensing, which is very expensive, because some of the initial ICT initiatives that failed was as a result of budgetary constraints, so that you have the money for this year, then the subsequent year there's no money for the license, then you're cut off. So that is a thing of the past, and that has continued to develop and to grow, and I don't see why this thing cannot happen in the IEBC, considering that ICT is one of the main cost drivers in the running of an election. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Just a bit more follow-up. As a CRJ, you talked about running the judiciary day to day. What are those competencies that you needed to have to do that? Just briefly.
Just briefly?
Yeah.
Okay. You needed to have managerial skills. You needed to have communication skills. You have to be able to communicate, because there's so many things happening at the same time with very many different stakeholders. There's communication to go to the lawyers, there's communication to go to the court users committees, to the NCAJ, to the Witness Protection Agency. So communication was very, very important. And because of the high pressure, the nature of the work, just taking an example of during the elections period, when there's so many petitions being filed post-election, you have to have resilience. You have to be able to put in many hours, just hard work. You have to be able to guide. You have to be able to rally people around an issue so that you move together. You have to have very good coordination skills so that you know what every court is doing at any given time. You have to know what they need at any given time. You have to make sure that they're provided. You have to have very good financial management skills. You have to be able to ensure that procurements are done on time. There are no delays. Sometimes we had difficulties when budgets were released late, but then there would always have to be a way of doing things in such a manner that services are not interfered with, are not stopped. Again, we had to have. It was important for us to know what the public feels about our services. So it was about reaching out through the court users committees, through our customer surveys, just to be able to know what is it that people want, what are we doing wrong, how can we do it better. So those are some of the skills that we had to put to use.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. I would like to ask Madam Carol Kituku to ask some questions, kindly.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Honorable Amadi, if you are appointed the chairperson of the IEBC, your knowledge of the law and the legal systems that governs the IEBC will be critical in offering the strategic leadership, direction and guidance to the Commission. As you may know, Parliament is required to enact various laws that give operationalization to the various segments of the IEBC mandate. One of those laws could be the referendum law, the financing of campaigns law, the boundaries delimitation laws, just to mention a few. However, those laws have not been enacted to date. What do you perceive that to be, and how does that interfere or present challenges to the operations of the IBC, the failure to enact those laws?
Indeed, the failure to enact laws to operationalize the IEBC should be a concern to all of us. For example, on the issue of the referendum mentioned, currently we do not have a framework for conducting a referendum, so that if we needed to have one today, then there will be a challenge. How do you do it? How do you even frame the referendum question? I'm aware also that Article 100 that talks about the participation of women, persons with disability, the marginalized and all that, has not been operationalized. So it leaves us in a place where it is difficult to meet the objectives of the Constitution and what was envisioned by Kenyans when they demanded for those things in the making of the Constitution. I'm also aware that the IEBC has attempted to seek advisory opinions on some of these matters. For example, where we have delay in the issue of boundaries delimitation. So what happens? The Supreme Court has also delayed in giving that, meaning that then there is no clarity on how we move in terms of conducting the boundaries delimitation. The Campaign Financing Bill Act was stopped by the court for certain reasons. It was a good law, according to me, that would have helped us to decommercialize campaigns and elections, would have helped us to be more accountable, more transparent in the sources of funding when it comes to elections. But there is a conservatory order that is still there since 2017, and I think that issue needs to be resolved. And some of these issues can be resolved just by reaching out and having continuous engagements with the different stakeholders. I know that IEBC is not a member of the National Council on the Administration of Justice, which is the council that brings together all justice actors in civil society, the state actors as well. But IEBC was actually co-opted as a member of the National Council. So that would be a good forum, because I know that at some point Parliament also joined in. As secretary, they were not very consistent in attending, but that would be a very good forum to discuss these challenges, because it's in the interest of all of us that the Constitution is implemented as envisioned. And for as long as these areas remain hanging, then it means that there is something that we're losing. There's something that we're missing out on as a nation. Thank you.
Maybe a follow-up question on that. If you're successful and become the chairperson of the IBC, how do you propose to circumvent some of those challenges that have been brought about by the failure of Parliament to enact those laws, the lacunas in laws? Because in the meantime, IBC must perform its mandate.
What I see as an immediate low-hanging fruit is just continuous engagement, and also getting the general public to understand those issues. I know that IEBC engages a lot in voter education, and my view has always been it shouldn't just be about how to vote, how to use the ballot, but why should I? Am I picking people who are going to make sure that these things get to happen? So we have to keep engaging at all levels, from the parliamentary level, Senate, and then the general public, other actors, so that we just develop a shared vision for this nation. Things that I think going forward, my view is that in Kenya we legislate a lot We legislate on almost everything. There are certain things that there should be room for just administrative action, so that we are not waiting for law to be able to do everything. I think there is that issue of trust, and so because of that, we tend to legislate even the smallest thing that can be done just administratively through maybe a policy framework, and then that would be my view. Thank you.
Having worked as a judicial officer, and obviously having had the experience of working as a chief registrar of the judiciary, how do you see, or what do you think is the role of the court in adjudicating electoral disputes, and particularly these disputes that regard to the lacunas in law? Does the court have any role or any function to do?
Okay, where there is, I'll begin by saying that yes, the court has a big role in adjudicating electoral disputes, and the legal framework allows for, we have the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal, which is a subordinate court under the judiciary, and then during the electoral, the election petition periods, we have courts gazetted to deal with disputes. So indeed, the judicial officer has a role to adjudicate on electoral disputes. Does the court have a function where there is lacuna in the law? Yes, it does, and mostly at the level of, because legal interpretation, constitutional interpretation, is a function of the High Court. So if a question comes, a question arises, the court would have an obligation to make a pronouncement. There is law that is called judgment law. I think the law can make a pronouncement that can guide. I know that the Supreme Court has dealt with a few advice. Given direction, some of which has been ignored. So I think as a nation, we also just need to develop the culture of constitutionalism and respect for the rule of law. Because when the court, with its authority, has made a pronouncement on an issue, then it's only right that we comply and we follow what has come from there, unless there is subsequent legislation that changes the position.
The court to pronounce itself on this issue. Can the IBC go to court to can IBC go to court to compel Parliament to enact these laws and provide the required legislative framework? Is that something that would be that within the mandate of the court to do? Politically ideal for IBC to do so?
IBC compelling Parliament to legislate. I think IEBC can go to court and ask for anything. My only doubt is whether it would be the right way, the right path, because I believe more in engaging with the lawmakers, taking into account the view that if the lawmakers are hesitant to legislate on a particular thing, because we know that the courts have also pronounced themselves on certain issues that Parliament has still not done. So we also don't want, even as you consider that as an option, you don't want to go through a process of that nature in futility. So I would still prefer the engagement, negotiation process as opposed to an order which might be in vain. But yes, indeed, the court can pronounce itself and say, indeed, this law has to be passed because the Constitution says so. Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Given that during your time at the judiciary, there were constant complaints about inadequate funding.
Yes, I engaged a lot with the members, especially of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, and the members of the Budget and Appropriation Committee. And when I joined the judiciary, the budget was about 16 billion. When I left, we were at about 23. It was still way below our resource requirement, but progressively it was increasing annually. So we have to just keep at it, because the option is not to push for it and remain with nothing. So we kept engaging both informally and formally. During the budget discussion processes, we would prepare our resource requirements very well and explain the justifications for all those requirements. And we'd constantly compare the budgetary allocation for Parliament, which only operates in Nairobi, with the judiciary that has about 140 court stations across the nation. When I joined the judiciary in 2014, our budgets were at par, 16 billion, more or less. And within 5 years, Parliament had double the budget of the judiciary. Yet they operate only in Nairobi. They have very few staff compared to the judiciary. So they have that advantage that it's them to decide the appropriation of resources. The judiciary is, and it's not unique to Kenya, it is something that you see across the jurisdictions, that the judiciary tends to be the poorer cousin of the three arms of government. So it helps, it does help, because there are times when you're able to push and get something more, and you keep using it as long as you're using it with prudence. And as I said earlier, we had very little money, but money to have a very vibrant and robust ICT system, just with the little that we had. So we were able to be prudent in the use of resources, apply little to do much. So if you don't have enough resources, then it's about how do you apply it to maximize on what you have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciated. I would like to ask Madam Dr. Koki to ask you some questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning again, Honorable Amadi, and welcome to this interview session. It's not really an interview session. We're having a conversation, a dialogue. You spoke a little bit about legislation. When you spoke, you said that some things can be addressed by administrative action and so on. We notice, however, that since the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution and the elections that have been held under the Constitution, we have seen every one of them, the validity of the election of the president has been questioned and therefore has been challenged in the Supreme Court. And after every decision of the Supreme Court, we have seen recommendations of reforms that are required, legal reforms that are required to be done in relation to the process of elections by the IEBC. And we have actually also seen from the strategic plan of the IEBC 2020-2024, they identified over legislation as a challenge for them. Yet, we have seen this happening each time. So I wanted to ask you two small related questions. The first one was, in what areas would you say there has been specifically over legislation?
Okay, so thank Thank you for that question, Chair. In what areas do we have of our legislation? I'll give a small example. The issue of polling stations and the number of voters that can vote per polling station. The regulations give the number as 700 per polling station. And from our voter turnout history, our voter turnout is around 65% on average. There are stations that get as low as 40%, others as high as 90%. So with 700 people per polling station, right now our register has about 22.3 million registered voters. So if you put the number at 700 voters, we then end up with over 45,000 vote polling stations. If this was dealt with administratively, so that maybe you can decide that you increase the number to say 1,000 per polling station, it's still doable. It's still possible to do 700 people per polling station. If 700 turn up, if 600 turn up, you can still manage them within the day. The effect of that would be to reduce the polling stations to 22,000. Meaning you're then reducing the cost, the logistical inputs, the transport, the security, the temporary staff, the ballot boxes. You reduce to be commensurate with a reduced number of polling stations. But now when the hands of the IEBC are tied to that number, then you double the budget. And we know that we're trying to save on resources. We are always talking about austerity measures. We have legislation also on technology, which is a good thing. Technology is now the way to go. It creates efficiency. It helps us to transmit quickly. It helps us to manage the queues better and all that. So it shouldn't be too prescriptive, because then there should be allowance for innovation, because technology keeps changing. It changes very fast. In fact, I don't like it because the in thing is always on its way out. You can't keep up. So I think there should be room for innovation, so that then you're using the best innovation possible. You're using internal capacity to the extent that you can. There are areas like those that really can just be done administratively without being too prescriptive.
Thank you very much. The second question related to that is you have spoken about those things that can be done administratively. I would like to ask you to tell the panel what proposals would you have and at what stage?
Proposals for
the specific areas that need to be addressed administratively?
Yes.
And at what stage?
Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the committees of the IEBC is that deals with dispute resolution, deals with legislative reform, and also acts as liaison between the Commission and political parties. That would be the right place to have those discussions, so that we're looking at broadly which are the areas that are hindering rather than enhancing the work of the Commission. Map out those areas and then give a proposal, prepare a proposal for legislative reform, because we're looking at coming up with legislation that is more enabling than hindering some of the more administrative-like processes. It should be done as soon as possible, because if we're talking about the elections of 2027, the time is very short. Time is very short. There are counties that do not have representation, which have to be prioritized. So that the time is not there. You need to, everything has to run. You have to find a way, the team that is going to come in, to run all these aspects simultaneously. The sooner it is done, the better, just so that the IBC is facilitated to operate with more in an easier environment, legal environment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Honorable Amadi, and thank you, Chair.
Madam Amadi, whereas it is maybe helpful to take administrative decisions so that we don't over-legislate. For instance, in the matter you raised of the polling stations. Whereas that may be better for the pocket of the taxpayers, how will that be counterproductive for the voter?
Thank you, Chair. That would be counterproductive if the IEBC did not take into account the sparsely populated areas. It would be counterproductive where the IEBC did not take into account the very densely populated areas. The beauty of it is that it gives that flexibility so that you're able to look at what are the community interests in a particular place. How are the roads? Where is the farthest or the nearest administrative center? So as long as all these issues are taken into account, it would be okay. But if they were ignored for whatever reason, if the IEBC is not strategic about mapping out the polling areas, the polling centers, that can be counterproductive.
Thank you. Tanui, FCPA, please kindly ask your questions.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start by acknowledging that I've interacted with Honorable Amadi in my course of duty. So I want that to be on record. Madam Amadi, you've been at the Judiciary.
Yes.
And also the GSC. Kindly confirm to me and this panel, were GSC commissioners full-time or part-time?
They were part-time.
All of them were part-time?
All of them.
And confirm also that you are the accounting officer for the Judiciary and also for the GSC?
That's correct.
Thank you. Now, you will be transitioning from having been accounting officer for those two institutions, and you will be a chair of a commission that has full-time commissioners. And secondly, the former chair of IEBC, Isaac Hassan, he did observe in his book that in a commission where there is dual executive structure with a chairperson and also an accounting officer, he did indicate that there is always a risk of a chairperson getting the blame for the failures of the institution, and likewise for the CEO. Given your transition from being an accounting officer, now you will be a chair of a full-time commission. How will your experience as an accounting officer help, given the challenges that IEBC has had in the past? How will you transition? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed, I have been Secretary to the Judicial Service Commission under 3 Chief Justices. And your question reminds me of the challenge that we had at the level of Chief Justice, who is also chair of the commission. Because remember, the Chief Justice, as head of the Judiciary, also reports to the JAC. Because at the JAC is the boss, much as the Chief Justice is the chair. And in the Judiciary, they are the institutional head. So sometimes there was a problem in terms of balancing the duality of those two roles. As I said earlier, I served under 3 Chief Justices and just looked at how they managed themselves. At what point, the challenge was always, at what point do I put my foot down as head of the Judiciary? At what point is this now a commission issue? Because sometimes there tended to be that overlap. Where, for example, the Chief Justice has a particular view on an issue that's affecting the judiciary, and the Commission has a different view. It's something that kept playing out. So what we did, one of the things I did earlier in my time at the judiciary was to develop a Judicial Service Commission charter, which clarified rules, indicating how far the has to do. So that is what guided. We had a charter that helped us to manage that. A lot of times we also just had to, and that is something that I think is going to help me, is about just having informal discussions about certain issues so that you minimize on the potential conflict. So yes, the charter and just sticking to the rule of law. We had a lot of governance trainings, capacity building for the Commission, because they kept coming in at different times. This particular one is unique because the panel is handling the selection process for the entire IEBC Commission. But the commissioners of the JAC came at different times through elective processes, through appointive processes. And so each time we had new commissioners, we had to go through some kind of governance training, induction, just clarifying roles. It was never easy. I cannot say that it was easy. Even the charter did not sort it out, but it gave us a lot of guidance in terms of how far one could go. So for me, having been secretary, it gives me an advantage, because then I understand the challenges that a secretary would have when you have when there is overreach from the part of the members of the commission or the chair of the commission, and therefore be able to know that, you know, what I felt was a problem as a secretary, I should not now again be doing the same thing to the CEO, because I know how difficult the work of the CEO can be with minimal or no interference at all. So for me, it is an advantage, because I've had that experience. I have and I've also learned a lot from the 3 chairs that I served during that period. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I want to a follow-up question, and I want to get your view on this. Can the Commission, or you as a chairperson, is there any law that stops the chairperson of a commission to be appointed as an accounting officer?
I'm not aware of any law. It's more because the appointment of accounting officers is technically by the CS National Treasury. It's not by the institution, so that you are you are appointed to serve in an institution, but the formal appointment Treasury. If a chair was to be an accounting officer, I think there would be a lot of problems, governance-wise, because then the chair is supposed to be playing an oversight role. So if the chair is again the accounting officer, there's obviously conflict there. It will be difficult to say audit the institution, because remember, the internal auditor reports directly to the chair, to the commission, not to the CEO. So if the chair is then again the accounting officer, there is a problem there. So I'm not aware of the law any law that stops that, but I know that it doesn't. It would be a huge governance problem, to be problematic in any institution.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Misati, you have, please do ask some questions.
Thanks so much, Chair. Honorable Amadi, you are aware, and it is in public knowledge, that in some instances, we have had the Secretariat, the CEO of
please speak closer to the mic so that
the Secretariat, who have had a very stormy relationship with the chair or the commissioners, and in some instances we have had others who have had a very cordial relationship. Would you term it a personality issue or an institutional structure issue from where you sit? And given an opportunity, would you be able to make any changes, or you want to maintain the status quo? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. There are several reasons that cause tension between the Chair and Secretary, or the Commission and the Secretary. One could actually be just personality differences. If the two cannot agree because they're just different in their nature, right there's a problem. The other issue could be overreach, where the Secretary feels that the Chair is trying to interfere and they are trying to stand their ground, and there is no understanding between the two. Sometimes there is just institutional dysfunction where things are not properly structured, and so when things are not properly structured, there is lack of clarity, it causes a problem. But there is a way of dealing with that. One of the ways is, first of all, for people to understand their respective roles, and if there is a set of rules or a charter to guide that, better still. It is also important that because the Chair is the leader, it is the Chair because the Chair is the person that is giving direction. If, for example, the Secretary, the CEO, is not taking instruction or not doing or not implementing the resolutions of the Commission, because really one of the roles of the Chair of the Secretary is to ensure that all the resolutions of the Commission are implemented. It then becomes a disciplinary issue, because that is a role that is assigned by their job description, so you cannot get away from that. If the relationship is stormy because there is, what do I call it, personal interest, that sometimes does happen. It poses a difficulty for the institution. So what I would do in terms of having a cordial and a professional working relationship with a Secretary is, first of all, just to get to understand them. person that you're working with. What is he like? What is his leadership style? What are his values? It will also be important for them to understand you and your values and what you stand for, and what your expectations are and where the boundaries are, so that when the boundaries are clear, then we know that mine begins from here and yours begins from where mine stops. It will be important to have a framework, a reporting framework between the chair and the CEO, because the chair, much as you're not in charge of operations, you have to know what is going on. You have to know what is going on, because when something goes wrong, then the blame is on the chair, it's not on the CEO. So it will be important to have a framework for constant reporting, so that you know exactly what is going on. And the chair can also give guidance, much as it's not their work to do the operations, can give guidance. And I'm happy that I've had a lot of experience in matters public finance management, in matters procurement, in matters ICT, in all those matters, so that then it gives me that opportunity to be able to even pick out things that may not be correct, if maybe something is being effected or implemented and it's not being done correctly. Coming from a position of knowledge, it makes it very easy for me to be able to do that. And the working relationship has to be respectful. There has to be mutual respect from both sides. Then that reduces the tension. It is good also to acknowledge the good things that the Secretariat is doing, so that it's not always the bashing. Being coaching type of leader, I've been able to coach those working under me, give feedback, because sometimes when you don't give feedback and something is going wrong, then it continues to be wrong. But with a good feedback mechanism, it is then possible to create a relationship where expectations are clear, where roles are clear, and where tension, if any, is minimized. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. As a follow-up question, from your answer to the panel, it's like you're saying both personality and the structure of the institution, they play a role.
Yes.
So from a practical point of view, from your case, would you be evaluating the kind of person you find in, or would you make any changes? I wanted to know that.
Okay.
Then the other thing is that you mentioned about the issue of when you were initially, when you started, you mentioned about the pressure in the IEBC. Would that be something that will make you make a decision in terms of this an institution that has this pressure? So the role of the commissioners and the role of the Secretariat has to be distinguished, because it's only the commissioners who observe the pressure.
Sorry, I'm not very clear about your second question.
You said that this is high pressure institution.
Yes.
And from your statement is that the chair or the commissioners who are answerable out there. So how do you distinguish? You become assertive to the Secretariat so that you are able to observe the public pressure.
Thank you, Chair. The first question is whether I would make changes at the level of the CEO. I'm aware that the CEO has a term, and so unless there is reason to, it's always good to allow people to finish the term, and based on the evaluation of what they did during their initial term, the Commission can determine whether to extend or not to extend the term of that particular individual. But it will be good for us to know what has been going on, what are the challenges, are there things that can be addressed? Because I believe that at the end of at the entry point, there has to be some kind of engagement, and usually as you get to the end of your term, there is some kind of evaluation looking at how the work has been done in terms of operations, in terms of reporting, in terms of audit reports and all that. So I would hesitate to say that I would make a change before I know exactly what it is. But my view would be that whoever is in office ought to run their term if there is nothing really compelling. And then the new commission now will determine what they want to do in terms of progressing forward. Yes, the commission is the one that gets pressure when there is problems at the level of the whatever operational issues. If there's a problem with the electoral process at any stage, the pressure is on the commission, not on the secretariat. And that is why the commission has to exercise its oversight role in a very structured way, in a strong way. There has to be certain minimum expectations from the CEO. The things that the CEO must do and report to the commission, so that if there was a meeting and the minutes are there and the directions that were given at the next meeting, at the matters arising, the CEO should be able to indicate what they have done, not just say it, but also produce the evidence to show what they have done. They should be able to indicate what the challenges are, if they're meeting any challenges, and what support do they require from the commission to be able to do what they are supposed to do. Again, sometimes there could be a challenge when information is not flowing freely, so that something is happening in the secretariat, but the information is not flowing because it's waiting for the next meeting, and maybe something is going wrong. There needs to be a framework that allows for free flow of information, so that if there is something happening that the commission needs to know, then it can be nipped in the bud, and the secretariat can be assisted to do the right thing. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for Chair.
Thank you, Bwana Misati. At this time, I'd like to invite panelist Fatuma Saman to also ask you some questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Where you were the interviewer. I was the interviewer, you were the interviewer.
The roles have changed.
That's on a light note. And as you already know, the IEBC is always expected to be an impartial arbiter. But at the same time, it's expected to engage stakeholders like the judiciary, the executive, the legislature. And I would like to hear from you, what do you think you'll be able to do in terms of maintaining that impartiality, but at the same time, engaging these specific stakeholders, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature?
Thank you so much, Chair. Yes, indeed, the IEBC is supposed to be an impartial arbiter that carries out its responsibility without any influence from anywhere, without influence from the government, from any political party, from any candidate, from any public office. And it is indeed true that stakeholder engagement is very, very important. It's very important. In fact, there is no institution that can run without engaging stakeholders, because we cannot work in silos. We have to work with partners. In engaging with stakeholders, first of all, you have to map them out and know who are the people that I need to work with. Is it the police? Is it the DPP? Is it the judiciary? Is it civil society organizations when you're talking about voter education, for example? Is it DCI? Is it based on whatever it is that the IEBC is seeking to gain from the stakeholders? All those engagements must be on the basis of the rule of law. All the engagements must be on the basis of strict observance of the rule of law and based on the respective mandates of the IEBC vis-a-vis the mandate of those other institutions. If it is, for example, the police, and you're seeking to effect arrests for people who have violated the Election Offences Act, then you're operating just on the basis of that, following the law. If it is about witness protection, it's the same thing. So stakeholder engagements have to continue, but based on the rule of law. Thank you.
On a follow-up question, would you, if you were to consider developing a stakeholder engagement guideline, what are these principles that would guide the stakeholder engagements? Apart from the rule of law, of course, you've mentioned.
Okay. There's the issue of common interest. What are we interested in as IEBC based on the mandates of the other organization or institution? You will also look at what do I say? You'd need to look at what is it that IEBC requires? What kind of support does IEBC require from the other organization? It also has to be based on mutual respect. And it also has to be able to, whatever engagement you're having should be able to meet a need of the Commission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fatuma Saman. This time I want to invite Nicodemus Bore to ask you some questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Amadi, we saw your service for the nation for the last 10 years in the public. And from your CV, you have indicated that you did almost 20 years in the public service.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm sure you have had experiences of misconduct within your institutions that you have been serving.
Yes.
And also, your role was to ensure integrity was upheld. So, how are you able to deal with such internal misconducts at the same time upholding integrity, especially as a chief registrar for the last 10 years?
Okay. Yes, we had a lot of challenges with integrity issues in the judiciary. It's in the public domain. We know that we have very many good judicial officers, but we also have those that disappoint, and it's really a national problem. So some of the integrity issues that we had at all levels, at the judicial level and at the administrative level, included things like allegations of corruption, allegations of bribery, allegations of improper influence, and that's on the judicial level. At the administrative level, there were allegations when it came to matters of favoritism, as an example, in terms of, things like transfer, like, what else? Promotions. There would be those allegations. And so what did we do? In terms of looking at matters integrity, the judiciary created the Office of the Judiciary Ombudsman that would receive complaints from the public or from the internal public. And so the complaints would be processed and sent to the Judicial Service Commission, which has a disciplinary mandate, both for staff and the judicial officers and the judges. So complaints would come. There was a complaints manual that we developed to help us process them by way of giving the complainant an opportunity to be heard, and also giving the judicial officer or staff an opportunity to be heard. And then a determination is made. In a few cases, there were people who were let go. In some, there would be a warning or a severe warning, or one would be admonished. So there were different levels of disciplinary outcomes depending on the gravity of the problem. So in terms of upholding integrity, we did customer satisfaction surveys to just have a sense of what people are saying about us. Initially, we got a very low percentage, and the subsequent ones kept getting better and better because we were able now to identify the areas where we were being hit the most and trying to put measures in place to make sure that we try and deal with the issue of upholding integrity. One of the initiatives that we put in place was to have integrity assurance officers in every court station. So every court station had to pick 2 people to be the integrity assurance officers, and we partnered with the EACC to train them so that then they would know what to look out for and indicate who was doing what. It was still new by the time I left the judiciary, and I hope that it is progressing well. So apart from the Office of the Judiciary Ombudsman, we had the integrity assurance officers, and we also had the judiciary leadership team that then would deal with certain aspects of concerns that were coming from the court stations, especially where there is no report. Because one thing you realize is that many times people will say, court so-and-so is corrupt, but they will rarely come and say, I gave this or I did this, because things are done under the table. So that then it's when it's a matter that is of common notoriety, but you don't really have any evidence, it becomes challenging to deal with it. But again, you can deal with it administratively just by asking the magistrate or the staff to come and you tell this is your reputation and you're being watched. And in some situations, it did help. Yeah.
As follow-up question, the position you have applied for is of very high public scrutiny. Mm-hmm. And remember, a year ago, before you left office,
yes,
the High Court issued orders to freeze your personal accounts.
Yes.
And those of the law firm associated with yourself.
Yes.
That is Amadi and Associates Advocates in relation to a gold scandal.
That's correct.
It is alleged that you and other persons who are at the center of the gold scandal defrauded a British citizen of more than $100 million paid to the purchase of 1,500 kilograms of gold.
That's correct.
Which it is said you were to deliver in exchange for the payment. These are serious allegations.
Very.
And we wish you to have a chance to explain to the public
yes,
how this position you have applied for, noting the serious allegations of your involvement in the gold scandal.
Yes.
And maybe you can have a chance to clear the air.
Yes. It is true that there was an order that was issued freezing my accounts, and I agree with you that the allegations are extremely serious. My response is this, that there was actually no reason for me to be in that case and named as the first respondent, because the firm that is involved, I resigned from it in 2014. And I was very busy in the judiciary. There was no time even to go and, get into any kind of practice. So for me, it was a malicious attack, and which is something that is, when you're in public service, you must be ready for. Public service at certain levels is not for the faint-hearted. So it was an attempt to shake me, an attempt to mudsling my reputation because I've upheld my integrity. I do not have skills in gold trade, and I had nothing to do with it. In fact, for the interest of this commission, I came with copies of the decision of the High Court that vitiated the decision freezing my account, and also the decision of the Court of Appeal, which agreed with the High Court and basically found that I had nothing to do with it. So I have the decisions which I can share with the Secretariat if need be. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You give a copy of that decision to the Secretariat. The gentleman behind you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mwanatanui, FCPA. Oh, sorry, Professor Adams. Professor Adams, sorry about that.
Thank you very much, Chair. Madam Amadi, you are seeking to go to a very high voltage position. You have just come from a high voltage institution where you served as the accounting officer under 3 Chief Justices post the 2010 Constitution. And just like where you seek, there have been questions on the judiciary. The position you held, you finished 10 years. Some people were not lucky. Where you are going, most of them usually also end up finishing their terms. And even when they finish, the country is usually divided as to whether they are a hero or a villain. Looking back to the institution you have just come from, bearing in mind that there was the Ringera team, that there was the radical surgery, that there was the vetting board, and still questions arose, still arise to this day on that judiciary. Looking back on your service, is there anything you would do differently in terms of promoting institutional integrity in the judiciary? Looking and reflecting now that you have exited.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Indeed, I have come from a very high voltage position, and I was very conscious of the fact that IEBC is also very high voltage before I consulted within myself and decided that I wanted to give it a try. I don't know whether it's because I'm used to it, but I know that I've been tested and I have been tried, and I've undertaken high voltage national processes relating to the transition of 2 presidents in this country. And I did it successfully under immense pressure. I never lost my composure. I never lost my comportment, and it's because I have a very high self-awareness. And for as long as I'm following the rule of law, it really doesn't matter. I applied knowing that IEBC is one of the most vilified institutions in this country, either as by way of perception or whether it's real, whether the things that IEBC is accused of are true or not true. I can't sit here and say that this is the this is this is what they did wrong. But I know that I'm able to take pressure, and I know that I have very high emotional intelligence. I know that I'm able to be a unifying factor in the commission. I'm able to reach out because I believe that sometimes what we've seen is there is a lot of problems even at party nomination levels before it comes to the IEBC. And when there is trouble at the nomination level, it is likely to show up at the electoral levels. So my thinking is that constant engagement with the political parties and other players is very important so that there is no suspicion. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of restoring public trust in the IEBC, because this is our country and this is our institution. And we need to get to a level where we're able to trust outcomes. I remember in 2017, the Judiciary Committee on Elections visited one jurisdiction, it was Ghana, to see how they do their electoral dispute resolution. That year we had the previous year we had 388 election disputes in the judiciary. In Ghana, they only had 7. Reason? The trust that they have in the electoral body. And my vision is to see an IEBC like that in this country, where an election can happen and people feel that, yes, I lost, but I lost fairly. We need to deal with the party discipline first. There are times when we all know in this nation that for the so-called stronghold areas, once you have the party ticket, then you're as good as elected. Voter education remains so important because the people who fight, the people who are used to cause violence are the same voters. So my view is that as the IEBC does voter education, it's important to extend it to civic education so that it's not just voter education. We've also placed a very high premium on the presidential election because ordinarily you'll find that a lot of the other positions are not so hotly contested as the top position. When we talk about technology, the challenge I see is that very few people understand it, how it works. Is there a way through which the IEBC can engage all the stakeholders in looking at what they want in terms of specifications for the digital systems? How do they want it to work? What should it look like? Because when we have very few people who understand the system and the rest of the population doesn't, because the law says that the process should be simple, accurate, verifiable, and all that. But if it's not understood, then it's very difficult to deal with the aspect of suspicion. So my thinking is that all these processes should somehow be accessible for those who want to know, those who want to participate. They should be allowed to participate so that then at every stage, people know what is going on and people know what to expect. When there is any kind of mystery, any kind of we don't know what is going on, then we are likely to continue on that trajectory. So what I'll try to do is just be more open. I'll try to be more engaging with stakeholders at every stage and also communicate strategy on need basis so that questions are answered before, so that we are proactive and not reacting to complaints that are being raised. And this panel has a very key role in ensuring that you also just give this nation a team that is going to help us achieve that. It's not an easy thing, but I know that it is doable, because if we get it right from this panel, then you're likely to get it right at the critical moment. Thank you, Chair.
You just talked of public trust, and IEBC is one of the institutions that has one of the lowest public trust, depending on which side of the political divide you are in. It is this very same IEBC that we have seen chairs declaring results surrounded by policemen without fellow commissioners. Sorry for that. Without fellow commissioners. You have just told us about how you have overseen 2 presidential succession with immense pressure at hand. This one is even going to have even more immense pressure. And the country is looking, as you correctly say, can we get it right this time? What does Amadi bring in terms of leadership, in terms of courage, in terms of integrity? Because people die. We know of very key officials who died in unexplained circumstances up to today. It will be high voltage. What does Amadi bring that people can look and say, this time round, as you correctly say, we can have an election in which the loser says that all is right, or in which the Supreme Court does not nullify, or in which the Supreme Court listens but doesn't say that irrespective of this and this and this should have been done this way. But because of the security of the nation, we need it.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, you had earlier asked just to compare with what we had done in the judiciary. And remember, when I went to the judiciary in 2014, there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of noise, which I was able to calm. There was a lot of integrity issues which are in the public domain, and which we were able to manage and reduce significantly. If you look at for example, the audit queries we had back then, over 50. By the time I left, we were getting only 5 audit queries, which could be explained. So I bring that, the issue of following the law, keeping people informed, being open, being transparent, and just ensuring that you're moving along with everybody. The issue of pressure, the high pressure, I thought about it, and I'm a very courageous person. I don't look it, but I am. And I believe that if I am able to demonstrate that what has been done is the right thing, it shouldn't matter where the pressure comes from. It shouldn't matter. We have to keep at it, because if we don't sacrifice to occupy that space, then who is it that should? So I've thought about all that, and with my patriotism, I am ready for any eventuality, should it happen in the way that you have described it. It's very scary, but doable, and I'm ready for it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So where do you draw your strength from?
I draw my strength, first of all, I'm a believer, and I always know that if I'm doing the right thing, then I'm guided from high up. I draw my strength from sticking to the truth, what is true, because the truth can never become a lie, and lies can never become true. I draw my strength from my self-awareness. I know how far I'm able to go, and I know where I cannot go. So that is where my strength comes from. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll move to FCPA Tanui to ask further questions.
Thank you, Chair, and Honorable Amadi. I heard you mention about Ghana, how they have been able to hold successful elections. And I would wish that should you be given this position, you also do a benchmarking. I think in the same Ghana, there are other electoral commissions where the chairperson of the commission has been given executive powers. They are also accounting officer.
Okay.
Reason being that, and you'll note from our country, that there have always been an issue of the roles between the chair and the accounting officer. So
right.
there are successful commissions that have actually given those roles.
Oh, I didn't know
chair.
that. Thank you.
So just for your information.
Thank you.
Now, a follow-up question on what Professor Olo has put it is on how would you handle conflicts? You will appreciate that IEBC, there are many actors or stakeholders who would want to control the operations of IEBC. You go to Treasury, they don't give them adequate funding, they delay the funding, it affects their processes. There are other stakeholders who tell them they have no powers to make regulations, despite the fact that they are an independent commission. So there are also cases, and this has been reported in the past, where even staff members of the commission were being alleged that they took partisan roles in the election process. So if you get this position as a chair, how will you work around using your leadership skills and your experience to ensure that all these stakeholders are brought together and that the commission achieves its mandate? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just give an example of what happened in the run-up to the 2022 elections. There is a framework that was put together which was called multi-agency team or something like that, that brought together all the agencies. There was Judiciary, there was Police, there was Treasury, there was Ministry of Interior, and IEBC. Basically for purposes of just seeing how the IEBC could be supported to be able to conduct a successful election in 2022. And they had several meetings where the IEBC, outside of the normal framework, was able to indicate the kind of support that they needed, the kind of timelines within which they had to do what they needed to do. And there were certain commitments that were made by the various agencies. But I know that at some point, again, IEBC stepped out of that framework for some reason. I think it was a good initiative that can still be tried. The reasons as to why IEBC stepped out of that framework are not so clear to me at this point in time. But I've always believed that when things are done in a consultative way, through a cooperative framework, they tend to just work better in terms of people understanding that this support needs to be given so as to avoid delays, so as to hinder the processes of the commission. On the issue of staff playing partisan roles in the electoral process, that's very unfortunate. I think you have to be able to disrupt certain formations within the commission. There's a way in which staff can be taken through. They can be taken through processes that can help their mindsets, but again, it shouldn't be too. Certain administrative interventions can be made to make sure that it's difficult for staff to do to carry out their activities, their duties in a partisan manner. For example, if someone was expecting to go and oversee the elections in Nakuru and last minute they're taken to Kajiado, then they will maybe not be able to do what they had planned to do. So there are certain administrative interventions that can be put in place to just make sure that we minimize on the mischief, if any has been planned. But I'm sure with a team we'll be able to discuss and just see what else is possible to be done, so that people are just following the regulations, the rules. I know what we did in the judiciary for most of the things, because when I went there, I found that there were no standard operating procedures, there were no manuals. So we had to prepare a lot of manuals that everybody had to stick to. Everyone had to stick to, so that then everything is done in the correct manner. Again, technology can help, because when the system is secure, then there's some of the mischief that can be prevented from taking place, even if the human nature wanted to, interfere with the process.
Lastly, and related to the multi-agency team, which I think I attended one of the meetings at Safari Park.
Yes.
If in that process of having a multi-agency team, some stakeholders, you observe that some stakeholders could be pushing for an agenda that is contrary to the mandate of IEBC, what would you do?
The IEBC would have no choice but to stick to what is right. And maybe if the agenda is then contrary to the principles that IEBC is expected to follow, then maybe that is the reason that what happened last time did happen. It might get to a level where you have to step out if it is not serving the interests of the nation, if it is not serving the interests and the objectives of the commission. Yeah.
Thank you very much. The media might just call you the disruptor of IEBC if you got this position, and so thank you for those answers. I want to ask Professor to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Madam Amadi, I see from your CV that you have also done a lot in FIDA and gender-related matters.
Yes.
And therefore, I believe that globally you follow advancement of women issues and the gender issues. So my first question to you on that is, which country, which African country recently elected its first female president?
I see her. Namibia.
Okay, proceed.
The Senate represents counties, and we have 47 counties, but we also, in terms of the number of senators, we have 67. How do you explain the extra 20 as per the Constitution and Elections, IEBC and Elections Act?
The extra 20, those would be the special seats for women, for persons with disabilities, for the marginalized, those special interest groups. And they come in through party lists which are submitted to the IEBC, and those party lists cannot be changed, they're final. And so the parties are assigned the nominated seats based on a pro rata basis. So that is how the 20 come in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Madam Amadi, you are aware that by law we are required to ask for public participation
Yes.
on the candidates that we shortlist, but also to do some due diligence around them.
True.
One of this matter that has been brought to your attention is a matter through a memorandum dated 19th of March 2025 by an individual who says that he's a citizen of Kenya, and he claims in his memoranda the following. Alleges that during your tenure as the registrar to the Judiciary and also as secretary to the Judicial Service Commission, you failed to comply with express court orders and or the directions in matters in which the Commission was directly involved. So the rule of law. Number B, the petitioner claims that in the case 34, petition 34 of 2014, in which JSC was directed to publicize procedures for all its, let me just use my glasses, for all its disciplinary and investigative processes within 90 days of the judgment, he claims that you did not comply with that judgment. C, the petitioner cites the case of the Republic versus Salaries and Remuneration Commission and two others, civil application number 58 of 2020, in which the court ordered payment of backdated salaries to the judges to be refunded, which you disobeyed. Number D, it says that maybe I should ask the Vice Chair to pick up number D and E, kindly, just to clarify and put the questions to you.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a continuation, Honorable Amadi.
Yes.
That, the memorandum also states that it was alleged that you should not take a lead role in IEBC, now given your past work record, according to his memoranda.
Yes.
And also that he requests the panel to indulge you on how, during your tenure, you assisted the judiciary in handling rampant corruption complaints within the judiciary. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. I saw the petition last night, so I didn't have an opportunity to engage with it thoroughly and to give a comprehensive response. But nonetheless, I will say this, that the decision that whoever the complainant is talking about related to judges' salaries. Salaries of judges are not paid by the judiciary. They are a direct charge to the consolidated fund. So that when a decision like that is made, then my role is to communicate to the National Treasury for effect, which I did. And if I had had an opportunity, then I would have found a way of getting the material to respond. But I did comply, and so it is the executive that pays the judges directly. The chief registrar only pays the magistrates and the staff. So the rule of law was followed. Then the one on...
So did you advise the
National Treasury?
Yes.
Yes, we did advise the National Treasury, and I think the SRC as well, because it had a huge budgetary implication. Then the one that, what is it? The one on corruption cases, I think I had responded partly when panelist Bor, sorry, I hope that I got the name right, asked me about my case. We had a very comprehensive framework for dealing with cases of this nature. We even had cases where, I'll give an example of a case where a magistrate was actually arrested and charged for corruption, and the case went on and she was acquitted, but the JSC still let her go because JC was of the view that yes, the court has acquitted you, but from the evidence that we have, we can see that there is clear misconduct. So it is not correct that we did not deal with corruption cases. There was a day that we lost 5 magistrates in one day for these kinds of malpractices. So it is not correct that we did not handle those cases. We did. The challenge, as I said earlier, is that a lot of allegations are made with very little evidence, if any. So when there is no evidence, then it's a bit difficult to deal with it conclusively. You can deal with it by way of engaging the individual, but where there is evidence, the Commission has been very strict in addressing this issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We apologize that you got this last night. The memoranda came to us on the 19th, which is a few days ago. If you can be able to help the Secretariat with some of that material you have mentioned, just to be able to confirm your response.
Yes, I will try, because I'm not in the judiciary anymore. So it means asking someone to help me retrieve that. I will make the attempt nonetheless. And maybe you can give me the timeline within which that should be done, so that if I'm able to get the material, then I'll be able to respond more comprehensively.
Do that in the course of this week.
Okay.
Yeah, today is Monday, so if you do that by Friday, it will be okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Allow me to thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And to just say that we have enjoyed interacting with you. We have learned a lot about your work in the past, the judiciary, your work with FIDA, your community engagement, and we are grateful to the responses you have given to us. I'd like to ask you if you have any question for us, so that we can be able to respond, if at all.
Mine is just to wish you well. It's a challenging process, very daunting, but you have what it takes. So I just want to wish you well and to thank you so much for having me. May God bless you.
Thank you very much. You have a bottle of water before you. Feel free to take it with you. Ensure that you have your certificates and your documents so that you don't leave them with us. And if there's anything else that we can do, the Secretariat will be at hand to attend to you. Otherwise, these members have enjoyed interacting with you.
Thank you very much.
And we wish you well.
Thank you.
Asante. Shukran. Yes, notebook. You can take your notebook. Thank you. So media, I can see some of you very keen fixing your camera on our documents. The documents are not for public consumption. So please take some judicial control so that we are not exposing them to the public. It's the interview, not the documents. At this point, I want to ask you to, again, give us some time. Please, we thank you for doing this for us. Give us some time so that we can finish our processes together. Please do so quickly. So turn off, please turn off. Don't leave your mics on. Just turn off your cameras, your mics.